I'm 28 years old. I'm the kind of guy who's always been told, family comes first. Maybe it was the way Mom raised us after Dad left, or maybe it's just something I clung to because it made life feel a little less cold. Whatever the reason, for as long as I can remember, I've been the one picking up the pieces whenever my younger brother Tyler tore things apart. He's 26, old enough to know better, too young to care. Tyler's always been a lot. He's the golden boy when things are good, the ghost when things fall apart. And I guess I was the idiot who thought if I just gave enough, supported enough, loved enough, he'd eventually grow out of it. It started small, the way these things always do. Hey man, I'm short on rent. Just this once. Texts. A desperate call because he forgot about his credit card bill and his account got frozen. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself, everyone struggles a little in their 20s. But months turned into a year, and the amounts got bigger. $200 here, $600 there, then $200 to fix his car. And every time, Tyler had the same wide-eyed look of gratitude, promising, swearing this was the last time. I wanted so badly to believe him. It was about 3 days before New Year's Eve when he called again. This time while I was standing in line at the grocery store in Nashville, arms full of stuff for a quiet little get-together I'd planned with a few friends. His voice was breathless, frantic. His car had been repossessed once before because he fell behind on payments, and he was about to lose it again if he didn't cough up $2,500 immediately. He begged, pleaded, said he'd be stuck without a job if he lost the car, that he was finally getting serious about his life. Against every bit of better judgment I had left, I wired him the money. I didn't even tell anyone. Part of me was embarrassed by how easily I caved. Again. The thing is, when someone shows you who they are, you can ignore it for a while. But eventually, even the thickest, rose-colored glasses crack. New Year's Eve came, and Tyler said he was heading to a party a few towns over. I assumed he'd be busy doing his usual, getting drunk, making promises he wouldn't remember in the morning. I stayed home with a couple close friends. We ate way too much junk food, played board games, and counted down the clock like kids. It was nice, peaceful in a way my life hadn't been for a while. I even started letting myself hope. Maybe this year would be different. Maybe 2025 would finally be the year I stopped feeling like I was dragging my brother behind me everywhere I went. Then, right as the ball dropped, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Tyler. "You're just a burden. Stay away." That was it. No explanation, no apology, no nothing. Just 7 words that hit harder than any punch ever could. At first, I thought it had to be a mistake. Maybe he was drunk. Maybe he meant to text someone else. I stared at the screen for a long minute, blinking, rereading it like the words would change if I just looked hard enough. But they didn't. Then the group chat lit up. Photos of Tyler grinning ear to ear, raising a glass with a few of his party buddies. One of them captioned the photo, "Freedom from leeches." New Year, new me. There was Tyler, front and center, looking like he didn't have a care in the world. Like the thousands of dollars I'd scraped together to keep his life afloat meant absolutely nothing. Like I meant absolutely nothing, I didn't say anything, I didn't respond, I didn't call him or scream or send a long, angry text. I just sat there, letting the cold, hollow feeling settle in. My friends must have noticed the shift, but I brushed it off, forcing a smile and claiming I was just tired. Inside, though, something hard and sharp started to form where that soft hope used to be. I barely slept that night. My mind kept replaying every time I'd bailed him out. Every time I'd stood between him and the consequences he should have faced. And every time he'd smiled, patted me on the back, and gone right back to wrecking things. I realized then that I hadn't been helping him all these years. I'd been enabling him. I wasn't his brother in his eyes. I was a crutch, a wallet, a fool. By the time morning came, I knew exactly what I needed to do. The first thing I did was open up my laptop and pull up the payment history for Tyler's car loan. It didn't take long to find the document with my name on it. Because, of course, when he was desperate and the dealership didn't trust his credit score, he begged me to co-sign. I was still technically the primary owner of that car. Tyler didn't even read the fine print when he got the keys. He just wanted to show off his shiny new toy to his friends. I pulled up the bank statements next, the ones that showed how many payments had come out of my account temporarily while Tyler got back on his feet. Temporary had turned into permanent pretty quick, and like an idiot, I'd let it happen. But the best part? Tyler had missed so many payments in the past that there was already a tow order sitting on standby for any further delinquency. And he was 2 days overdue. Again. One phone call was all it would take. I made it around 8:30 a.m. before he even had a chance to drag himself out of whatever stranger's house he'd passed out in. The towing company remembered the case immediately and said they'd be happy to expedite the pickup. I just needed to confirm I was the registered owner. I smiled. Oh, I'm definitely the owner. By 9:45 a.m., I was parked in my car across the street from Tyler's place, sipping a coffee and watching the tow truck back into his driveway. Tyler's car, a flashy little red Mustang he couldn't afford even on his best days, was still there, crookedly parked, like he'd stumbled out of it last night, without a second thought. The driver hopped out, hooked it up with professional quickness, and within 5 minutes, that Mustang was off the ground, swinging slightly, as the tow truck driver locked everything into place. As he drove off, I caught sight of Tyler's front door creaking open. He was shirtless, barefoot, his hair a wild mess. He squinted against the morning sun, clearly trying to process what he was seeing. For a moment he just stood there, frozen. Then he bolted toward the street, waving his arms and shouting something I couldn't hear from my car. The tow truck didn't even slow down. I rolled down my window just enough to hear the last echo of Tyler's voice yelling down the street. High-pitched, panicked, and so confused. And then my phone buzzed. Incoming call, Tyler. I watched it ring, let it ring again, and then again. And when it finally went to voicemail, my screen lit up with his first text of the morning. Dude, where's my car? I set the phone face down on the passenger seat and leaned back, letting the warmth of the sun cut through the chilly morning air. For the first time in a long, long time, I didn't feel like the one carrying dead weight. I wasn't finished, though. Not by a long shot. Because Tyler's car was just the beginning, and the real storm was still on the way. I sat there for a few more minutes, just letting the feeling sink in. It wasn't happiness exactly. It was calmer than that, like standing at the edge of a field after a fire's burned everything down. Charred, empty, but free. A fresh start. My hands didn't shake anymore. My heart didn't pound. For the first time in years, I wasn't scrambling to fix Tyler's latest disaster. I wasn't sprinting to catch pieces of a mess he made and left for me to clean. I was finally letting it all crash the way it needed to. When I got home, the real fallout began. Tyler blew up my phone. 6 missed calls, then 12, then 19. A stream of texts came flooding in, starting with confused panic, spiraling into anger, and then rounding the corner into full-on rage. What did you do? Answer me. This isn't funny. I'm calling the cops. That one made me laugh. He could try. The title and the paperwork were all in my name. As far as the law was concerned, Tyler had been borrowing my car for months and not paying for it. If anything, I was doing exactly what I had every right to do. Still, Tyler wasn't the type to let facts slow him down. By noon, he was pounding on my apartment door. I didn't answer. I just sat at my kitchen table eating a sandwich, listening to the muffled thuds of his fist against the wood, the occasional yell of "open up" and "you're ruining my life" drifting through. I could picture him perfectly, hair wild, eyes bloodshot, pacing like a trapped animal, blaming everyone but himself. Eventually, when it became clear I wasn't coming to the door, he switched tactics. He slid a note under the door. I didn't even pick it up for an hour. When I finally did, it was just one line, scribbled angrily in black marker. "You'll be sorry." Classic Tyler. Always making threats when he couldn't win an argument. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had led up to this moment. Years of bending, years of swallowing anger and disappointment, years of telling myself he'd change if I just hung on a little longer. I thought about the times I paid his rent so he wouldn't get evicted, while I ate ramen noodles for dinner. The time I sold my gaming console, my one real outlet, to cover his utility bill, because he'd blown his paycheck at a casino. The birthday gifts that were on the way but never arrived. The times he promised to pay me back next week, but next week always became next month. And next month always became never. And worst of all, I thought about the way he smiled when things were good. All charm and bright teeth and backslaps. Until the moment he decided I was a burden, a leech, disposable. I wasn't disposable anymore. I didn't block his number. I didn't need to. Ignoring him was so much sweeter. Letting him scream into the void while I moved on with my life was a quiet kind of revenge that tasted better than anything loud or messy. The next day, I called the bank about the account I'd let him use, the one I had stupidly kept open so he could start saving under my guidance. Surprise, surprise! It was overdrawn again. Not anymore. I closed the account while I was on my lunch break. I also canceled the credit card he had a secondary user slot on, the one he swore he never used, but somehow racked up $200 in Uber Eats and bar tabs. I paid off the remainder myself, canceled it, and removed every single link between us financially. It felt like cutting the last rotten rope off a sinking ship. Then came the final piece. Remember that $2,500 I sent him just before New Year's? Yeah, that was a wire transfer through my bank. And because Tyler had agreed via text to repay it as a loan, I had the receipts to prove it wasn't a gift. I filed a small claims case that same afternoon. I didn't expect to get the money back. Tyler didn't have 2 pennies to rub together. But I didn't care. I wanted it on record. I wanted him to get served. I wanted the paper trail to exist, following him around like a bad smell. By the time the court date rolled around, I imagined him trying to explain to a judge how the burden he toasted his freedom from somehow still managed to take him down with a few well-placed signatures. But I wasn't done yet. I started going through everything. Every payment, every favor, every receipt, every email. I documented it all neatly calmly, like an accountant balancing a ledger after a long, messy year. It was exhausting, yeah. Emotional. There were nights I sat up too late, wondering if maybe I'd gone too far. Maybe I should just let it go. But then I remembered how Tyler looked in those photos, grinning, raising a glass, laughing with his friends as he toasted to being free of me. Free of the guy who kept his lights on. Free of the guy who put gas in his tank. Free of the guy who fought his battles when he was too weak or lazy to fight them himself. He didn't want me. Fine. I was done. The last piece, the piece that would really bring it all crashing down, fell into place a few days later when I got a very interesting piece of mail. It was a notice about Tyler's insurance policy, the one that had been bundled with mine because I'd been trying to get him a lower rate. His policy was canceled. Non-payment. I knew Tyler couldn't afford his own insurance. I also knew he probably hadn't even noticed yet. But he would. Especially when he found out that driving without insurance wasn't just a slap on the wrist in our state. It meant hefty fines, possible license suspension, and if he got pulled over or into any kind of accident, well, let's just say it wouldn't be pretty. I sat there on my couch, turning the envelope over in my hands, feeling the weight of it. It wasn't gloating. It wasn't even joy. It was relief. Relief that I didn't have to carry it anymore. Relief that Tyler was finally going to face consequences, real ones, for the first time in his life. And when the fallout finally hit, it was going to be spectacular. But first I just had to wait. Wait for the next call. The next desperate knock at my door. The next text begging for help. And when it came, I'd be ready. It didn't take long. 3 days later, a little before noon, my phone lit up with Tyler's name again. I didn't answer. I just watched it ring. The familiar knot of guilt that used to tighten in my stomach felt looser, smaller now. A minute later, a text popped up. "Bro, seriously, I need your help." I set the phone down, face up this time, and went back to my coffee, letting him stew, letting him realize that the bridge he burned wasn't going to magically rebuild itself. Another minute passed. "Please, man, I'm stuck. Got pulled over. No insurance. They're talking about towing again. I swear I'll pay you back. Come on." I almost laughed. Almost. The irony was just too perfect. He didn't even realize that there was no car for him to get towed anymore. The Mustang was long gone. The loan company had already put it up for auction 2 states away. As for his license, if they were checking his record properly, they'd see the outstanding violations he'd racked up under my insurance umbrella, without paying a dime. The kind of mess that doesn't just go away with a few apologies. Another text came in. "Please, bro, I'm begging you, I don't know what to do." That's when it hit me. The desperation wasn't fake anymore. This wasn't one of Tyler's usual crocodile tears, the ones he trotted out whenever he needed money or sympathy. This was real, raw, ugly. I should have felt bad. Maybe once, a long time ago, I would have. But all I felt was a grim sort of satisfaction. The kind that comes after years of being ignored, used, and tossed aside, finally turned into a weight lifted off your chest. Another call? Another voicemail? This time he left one. I didn't open it at first. I just sat there for a while, staring out the window, watching the clouds roll by in slow, heavy clumps. The world felt different now. Quieter. Like I was no longer bracing for the next crisis to crash through my door. When I finally played the voicemail, Tyler's voice sounded small, defeated. "Justin, man, please, I'm serious. They're saying I can't drive the car. They're saying they're going to tow it. I don't have anybody else. I swear I'll figure out a way to pay you back. Please, just this one last time. I know I messed up. I know I shouldn't have said those things. Just, please don't leave me like this. I'm sorry. There it was. The apology I had waited for all these years. And it meant absolutely nothing. Because it wasn't real. It wasn't because he understood what he did. It wasn't because he realized how deeply he had hurt me. It was because he needed something. Again. Always. I didn't respond. Instead, I pulled up the app for my bank account, the fresh, clean one I'd opened a few days ago, and stared at the balance. Untouched. Secure. Mine. It felt like a symbol. A tiny, tangible sign that I had finally put myself first. That I wasn't the family ATM anymore. That Tyler's mistakes weren't mine to fix. Later that night, out of pure curiosity, I checked his social media. I shouldn't have, but I did. And there he was, posting from the side of the road. A blurry, angry selfie with flashing police lights in the background. Some people only care when they need something. Guess I'm better off without fake family. Betrayed, Decrow, lesson learned. The comments were brutal. Most were from his party buddies who didn't know half the story, but loved a chance to pile on. Some sympathetic, most just making jokes about getting wrecked or starting 2025 right by getting arrested. A few mutual friends commented asking if he was okay. I didn't comment. I didn't like the post. I didn't even feel tempted to. Because Tyler was right in a way. He was better off without fake family. And so was I. The next morning I woke up to a quiet apartment. No frantic texts, no missed calls. Just sunlight filtering through the blinds and the slow, steady hum of a life finally becoming mine again. I went for a walk around the neighborhood, breathing in the crisp January air, feeling lighter than I had in years. No more waiting for the next explosion. No more trying to fix someone who didn't want to be fixed. When I got back home, there was one more message from Tyler waiting. It wasn't angry this time. It wasn't desperate. It was just 2 words. I'm sorry. I didn't reply to Tyler's apology. I didn't even open the message again after the first time. There was nothing left to say. It wasn't that I hated him. Hate would have been easier. Honestly, hate at least implies you still care, still feel something sharp and alive. What I felt now was distance, like looking at an old photo of a life I barely recognized anymore. Over the next few weeks, Tyler went silent. No texts, no calls, no sudden visits. I didn't know if he had finally gotten the hint, or if life had just swallowed him whole for a while. Either way, I didn't chase him. I didn't check up. I focused on my own life for once. It was almost startling how quickly things started to change when I did. I started going back to the gym. Not for anyone else, not to prove anything, just for me. I reconnected with old friends I'd slowly drifted from over the years. Friends who had quietly slipped away because they were tired of watching me be used like a doormat. I even started picking up extra shifts at work. Not because I needed the money to cover someone else's mess, but because I had goals of my own now. Things I wanted to save for. Places I wanted to travel to. My world grew larger, while Tyler's, I imagined, shrank. About 2 months after that chaotic New Year's Eve, I ran into an old mutual friend of ours, someone who used to know Tyler well. His name was Blake, and we crossed paths at a local coffee shop one Saturday afternoon. We made the usual small talk, the awkward dance of two people who shared too much history and not enough recent connection. Eventually, though, Blake brought up Tyler. "So, you talked to your brother lately?" he asked, stirring his coffee without looking up. "Nope," I said simply. He glanced up at me then, like he wasn't sure how much I wanted to know. "He's, not doing so great, man." I shrugged. "Not really my problem anymore." Blake nodded slowly. "Yeah, I figured. Just thought you should know. He's living with some girl now. Barely scraping by. Lost his job a few weeks ago. Word is he's behind on rent already." I didn't say anything. What was there to say? This was always where Tyler's road was leading. The only thing that had ever delayed it before was me standing in the way, patching up every pothole he stumbled into. Blake hesitated, then added, He's been telling people you abandoned him, that you left him homeless." I laughed under my breath. Not even bitter, just tired. Sounds about right. "You're not mad?" "No," I said truthfully. "I'm just done." There was a kind of peace in saying it out loud. Blake clapped me on the shoulder awkwardly, like he didn't quite know how to handle the conversation, and we parted ways after that. Later that night, I thought about Tyler's version of the story, how he twisted things to make himself the victim, how he probably painted me as the cruel, ungrateful brother who kicked him when he was down. It used to matter to me what people thought. It used to eat me alive, not anymore. I knew the truth, and the people who mattered would know it too if they cared enough to find out. Spring crept in slowly that year. The cold gray skies gave way to crisp blue mornings, the kind that make you want to roll the windows down and drive with no destination. I started doing that sometimes, just getting in the car, picking a direction, and going. One Saturday, I ended up at the edge of a small town about 40 minutes from Nashville. There was a tiny bookstore tucked between a bakery and a second-hand clothing shop. I wandered in on a whim and ended up spending 2 hours there, flipping through old paperbacks, chatting with the owner about favorite authors. I bought a few books, a couple of mugs, a handmade journal. It was such a small thing, a Saturday spent exactly how I wanted, with no obligations, no frantic calls, no looming crisis, and yet it felt like the biggest victory of my life. A few days later, I got a letter in the mail. Real mail, not email or texts. I recognized the handwriting immediately. Messy, a little rushed. Tyler. I almost threw it away, unopened. Almost. But curiosity got the better of me. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "Justin, I know you probably don't care anymore, and I wouldn't blame you if you didn't. I just wanted to say I'm sorry for everything. I was selfish. I took advantage of you. I told myself it wasn't that bad because you were my brother and that's what brothers are supposed to do. I realize now how much I hurt you, how much I used you. I'm sorry. You were the only person who ever really tried to help me. I see that now, and I ruined it. I'm trying to get better. I don't expect you to believe me. I just needed you to know. Thank you for everything you did, even if I didn't deserve it. Tyler." I sat there with the letter for a long time, turning it over in my hands. It was more genuine than anything he had ever said to me before. More honest. And maybe, just maybe, he meant it this time. But I didn't write back. Not out of anger, not out of spite, out of understanding. Some chapters in life aren't meant to be reopened. Some bridges stay burned, not because of hate, but because rebuilding them would only lead back to the same hurt, the same cycle. Forgiveness doesn't always mean letting someone back into your life. Sometimes it just means wishing them well from a distance. I folded the letter neatly, placed it in a drawer, and went about my day. And when summer finally arrived, bringing long evenings and warm golden light, I realized something beautiful. I wasn't surviving anymore. I was living. And I wasn't carrying anyone else's weight but my own.